Thank you very much for coming to our monthly webinar. So this month I'll be discussing microplastics and specifically some strategies your business can take to help limit single-use plastic consumption. So first of all, what are microplastics? So microplastics are tiny plastic particles that measure less than 5 millimeters in diameter, and they often result from the breakdown of larger plastic items like bottles, bags, and packaging materials. They can also be manufactured intentionally, such as microbeads in personal care products, and these particles are particularly pervasive in the environment. So they're found in oceans, rivers, soil, and even in the air we breathe. And they pose a really serious environmental threat because they're difficult to remove, they're ingested by marine life, and they've even entered the human food chain. So the UN has currently estimated that there's around 51 trillion microplastic particles in the ocean, and this is 500 times more than there are stars in our galaxy, so it really is a big issue. Sorry, it's not moving on. Okay, so there's two types of microplastics. There's primary microplastics, which are intentionally manufactured to be small, and then we also have secondary microplastics, so these result from the breakdown of larger plastic items. So in terms of primary microplastics, we have microbeads. So these are tiny solid plastic particles used in personal care products like face washes and scrubs and toothpaste. And then we have plastic pellets, which are also known as nurdles. And these are small plastic pellets which are used in the manufacturing of plastic products. And these often end up in the environment during transport. And then we also have microfibers. So these are tiny plastic fibers which are shed from synthetic clothing and textiles. And then in terms of secondary microplastics, we have fragments. So these are just pieces of broken plastic from larger items. Films, so these are thin layers of plastic. Then we have foam, so these are often used for packaging. And also fibers, so these are similar to microfibers, but they're already small before they've been broken down. So this picture on the left are nurdles which we actually found on one of our beach cleans. So my colleague Emily collected these the other day when we were just cleaning up around the Thames. And they're really small. I actually have them here, so you can kind of see that they're actually a lot smaller than they look in the photo. They're about the size of a lentil. And these are basically what plastic is in the form of before they're made into new items. So they'll get melted down and then molded into products. And it's kind of the starting stage of plastic before it's made into these products. But they're really a big problem because when they're transported, often in ships and things like that, there's big spills of them into the ocean, where like hundreds of thousands of them can be released just in one time, and then that causes a massive issue. But on a bit more of a positive note, there's something called the Great Global Nurdle Hunt, and anyone can participate in this. All you have to do is go to a location, usually coastal, and kind of collect as many nurdles as you can find, and then you can upload a photo onto the website with how many nurdles you collected and how long it took you to do so. And a lot of them will be featured on the website, which is really exciting. So we're hoping to get these ones on the website, so maybe you'll see them on there. So what are the consequences of microplastics? So microplastics interfere with the ocean's ability to absorb and store carbon by disrupting the food chain. So they affect key organisms in the biological carbon pump by reducing photosynthesis and altering feeding patterns. And they also harm phytoplankton and zooplankton, which play vital roles in absorbing and transporting carbon into the deep sea. And another thing is microplastics make organic particles more buoyant, which prevents them from sinking and then storing carbon in the deep sea. So again, this lowers the efficiency of carbon storage in the ocean. And on land, microplastics alter soil structure, they harm beneficial microbes, and they also reduce plant growth. So again, this lowers the soil's ability to store carbon. So overall, you can really see microplastics weaken the planet's natural carbon sinks. And secondly, biodiversity loss and ethics are a huge issue. So microplastics really accelerate biodiversity loss by harming a wide range of species through ingestion, entanglement, and also toxic chemical exposure. And this leads to injury, reproductive issues, and also death. So animals often mistake microplastics for food, and then this introduces these toxic chemicals into their ecosystems. It weakens the species' resilience, and it also just disrupts the ecological balance of the food chain. And this widespread harm to wildlife is often caused by preventable human activity. So it does raise really serious ethical concerns and reflects a disregard for animal welfare, ecosystem health, and the rights of future generations to a livable planet. And another really big issue is health. So microplastics pose a health risk to both wildlife and humans. So in animals, ingestion can lead to digestive blockages, organ damage, and reproductive issues. And for humans, microplastics has been found in food, so especially in fish. So a sample found that plastic was present in 99% of seafood samples which were tested, which is really high. But it's also found in our water and even in our brain tissue, which raises a lot of concerns about long-term exposure. So according to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, so the WWF, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, we're consuming on average the equivalent of a credit card's worth of plastic a week in the form of microplastics. So it's really a shocking amount. So how can we mitigate microplastics on a business level? So first of all is legislation. So I'm sure a lot of you are aware about the new simpler recycling legislation, which is coming into play recently. If you want to hear more about the simpler recycling, then you can find the simpler recycling webinar, which is on Recoria's YouTube channel, which goes into it in a bit more detail. But specifically in terms of plastics, from the March 31st, 2027, flexible plastics are going to be mandatory to be recycled. So these are things like your crisp wrappers or your sweet packaging, anything which you can kind of scrunch up into your hand. These are, at the moment, we call them hard to recycle items because you can't put them in traditional waste streams, but hopefully for March 2027, you will be able to do this. And then also a deposit return scheme is hopefully going to be implemented in October 2027. So we buy 25 billion single-use containers across England, Northern Ireland, and Scotland each year, and an estimated 6.5 billion of these go to waste rather than being recycled. So under this scheme, a redeemable deposit is placed onto specific drink containers that can then be claimed when the item is returned to a collection point such as a supermarket, which will hopefully help with this crisis quite a lot. So why are these changes happening? So the main thing is to simplify the rules. So at the moment, there's a lot of inconsistencies between what you can recycle at work, what you can recycle at home, and also between different boroughs. So hopefully this will make it all more streamlined and just reduce confusion when it comes to recycling. Also to help drive a circular economy. So we currently have a recycling rate which stagnates around the mid-40s. It's around 44% currently, but we have a 65% national recycling rate target by 2035. So hopefully these new legislations will help us work towards that. And then also to improve recycling quality. So one of the biggest changes which is occurring is that food has to be separated. So this has already happened for businesses, and then this will happen for households as well next year, which means that contamination will be reduced on items which can be recycled, like plastics and cardboard and papers, which means that our recycling rate will increase. And another thing which you can do is engage your staff. So educated staff feel more empowered to take steps to reduce single-use plastics. And this is where Recoria's sustainability team comes in. So at Recoria, we have a whole team of dedicated sustainability consultants to help you out with this. And there's a few different activities we can help you implement. So we have recycling improvement strategies. So this is where we come and do floor walks of your building and we can assess your bin infrastructure. And then from that, we'll evaluate whether your waste streams are simpler recycling compliant. We can suggest additional waste streams if we feel you need that. And we can also recommend signage to help with the waste separation. And then following this, we can also help you assist with setup or come and provide follow-up visits for any questions or support. And then we also have recycling workshops. So we have lunch and learns where we help educate your staff. And then we also have more back of house operational training kind of workshops, which are more targeted at the cleaning teams or back of house on how to recycle. And we just help your clients understand waste management in a more simple, effective and engaging kind of way. So we'll talk through the basics of waste management, from spotting contamination to learning which materials belong in each waste stream, and we'll dive into the journey of the waste after it leaves your site and its life cycle. So just kind of trying to make recycling easier and more efficient and digestible. We also run tours of our materials recovery facility. So this is based in Purfleet, and it's where all the mixed recycling goes. So it's a really great opportunity for you and your team to see exactly what happens after it leaves your building, the recycling. You'll get an insight into the entire process, and we'll guide you through each step of how your waste gets sorted and then processed. So that's something our clients do really love because it's a nice, fun day out. And then we also offer beach cleans. So as I mentioned before, you saw all those nurdles which we found at one of our beach cleans. So we run these along the Thames, and it's a great way for our customers to improve the quality of the local environment. It's also really good for your mental health, to get out and about with your colleagues. And after we've done that, we'll weigh your waste and provide you with a certificate, which is really great if you have a website or a newsletter or anything. You can kind of put that on there and show what you've done. And then lastly, we have awareness stands. So these are just kind of to promote all the good work you're doing. We can host a pop-up somewhere where you have high footfall, and we'll bring along fun and interactive recycling games and activities, and we can just answer any questions you might have about recycling. So these are some dates which are useful to kind of bear in mind in case you do want to organise one of these initiatives with us. So Plastic Free July, this runs through all of July, and it's a global campaign which encourages people to avoid single-use plastics. So there's over 100 million participants in 190 countries, which is really great. And then there's World Oceans Day. So this is a big one on Sunday, the 8th of June. So just kind of the week after would be a good time to help organise something. And this is to raise awareness of the ocean's role in life on Earth and the impact of human actions. And then we have World Refill Day, which I can't see because the Teams thing is covering it. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, I do not know it off by heart. Wait, hang on. It's on the 16th of June. And it's a global call for businesses, brands, and consumers to commit to reuse. I'm so sorry about that. No, it won't move on. Okay, so how can you reduce plastic waste? So first of all is supplying reusable items. So Recora's office supplies help to promote a circular economy by selling items which are made from recycled materials. And we also have items which are made from prevented ocean plastic. So these can be branded with corporate logos, and they're basically made from plastic which has been collected from coastal regions and prevented from entering the ocean. And also just using glass or bamboo water bottles, again, we can help supply with these instead of plastic bottles, is a great way in the office to make sure you're reducing your plastic consumption. We often say that if you aren't buying back recycled products, you aren't recycling properly, because if there is no demand for recycled products, then the supply isn't really as much use. So it's a really great thing to bear in mind to make sure you're kind of helping to promote a circular economy by doing that as well. And then also discouraging single-use consumption. So subsidy schemes are really great. So this is where you can give money off if people come along with their own flask or their own mug instead of buying coffee cups. We currently go through 7 million disposable coffee cups every single day in the UK. So it is a huge problem, and this is a great way to help tackle it. Or if you do want to use coffee cups for more practical reasons, then Recora has a coffee cup waste stream, where coffee cups will be collected separately and then they'll be reprocessed into new items such as notebooks and Selfridges bags. And we also offer a compostable service through our partnership with Vegware. So this helps your business avoid the need for food containers with plastic lining, because you can use compostables instead, which will get broken down. And then we also have circular boxes. So we have these for hard to recycle items, so more niche items which can't be put in traditional waste streams. And the most popular one of these at the moment is for our flexible plastics. So as I mentioned before, these are like your crisp wrappers or anything you can kind of scrunch up. And what happens if you collect these in one of our circular boxes is they'll get reprocessed into stormboard, which acts as a plywood substitute. So this can be used in construction or for furniture, instead of being sent straight to waste after one use. So this is another good way to make sure your plastic consumption is a bit more sustainable. So I'm now going to ask if you guys would like to help make a pledge. So this is one thing that you want to do to help reduce your plastic use. So, for example, one commitment that I made a few years ago was to avoid buying clothing firsthand. And this was fairly easy because secondhand clothing is a lot more accessible now with charity shops and also the rise of apps like Depop and Vinted. And this helps to reduce microplastics because synthetic clothing, which is what shops frequently sell, releases microfibers into air and also water. And what's really shocking is that 70% of ocean microplastics are the type found in clothes, textiles, and also fishing gear. So being careful about your textiles consumption is another way to have a really big difference. But some other steps you can take is to maybe reduce your fish consumption because fishing gear is a really significant contributor to microplastics in the ocean. 18% of total marine plastic debris is from fishing gear. So, for example, ropes and things like that will fray off when they're being used into the ocean. Another thing you could do is maybe pledge to make sure you're taking a flask or a mug or a reusable cup around with you everywhere so that you're not having to buy disposable cups when you're getting drinks out and about. Um, but if anyone would like to share their pledge into the chat, it would be great if I could read some out. So I'll just give you guys a minute or two to maybe think of a pledge, and then I'll see if there's any which I can share. So I've got one here. Emily said, I pledge to take my reusable coffee cup with me every day. So that is a really great one because it's so easy to do, but it is so easy to forget. So if you've kind of made a pledge to do that, it makes it a lot easier. Um, I'll pledge to not use any single-use plastics when buying fruit and veg at the supermarket. That is another really great one. I think the plastic bags are kind of sometimes a little bit useless, but because they're there, you kind of feel like you have to use them. When in reality, it is really easy to just kind of pick up the fruit and veg you need and take it home with you without using one of those bags. So Caroline has seconded that one. I'll give it another few seconds in case anyone else has one they want to add. Okay, I think that might be it. So thank you so much for coming. I'm now happy to answer any questions, or try my best to answer any questions. So again, if anyone does have any questions, you can put them on the chat now, and I'll kind of just wait around for a few more minutes and answer them. But if you think of any questions later on, then you can email our sustainability team. So that's sustainabilityteam@recora.co.uk, and we can get back to you on there as well. But if not, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I guess I'll just wait for any questions. So I've just got a question. When you said we consume the equivalent of a credit card of plastics each day, is this mainly from meat and fish products or other sources as well? So a big contribution will be meat and specifically fish products. So as I mentioned, there was one study which found that 99% of the seafood samples had plastic in them, which is really high, but it is a lot of other factors as well. So even in the air, there will be microplastic particles, in the water we drink. Yeah, they really are everywhere. So it's kind of just taking steps which you can take. For example, maybe you use a plastic Tupperware. I actually use a plastic Tupperware myself. Which I've been meaning to change, but even things like that, when you're kind of using things just in your everyday life, plastic water bottles, everything like that, they'll all release microplastic particles. So no, it isn't only consuming meat and fish, but that is a large contributor. Just checking in about the circular box, is there a charge for this? Yeah, so there will be. You can email us after this and we can send you all the information you need about the collections and the pricing. And everything to do with that. So we can get back to you on email so you can have that on you. I'm guessing there's no more questions.